Hi, YouTube. I wanted to stop by today and talk to you a little bit, I guess, about Gnosticism. The general rule, I suppose, is that Gnosticism, at least today, is considered a bastardization of what we can call orthodoxy. Now, there are several problems to that. First, that Gnosticism wasn't even rejected till the second half of the 2nd century. But the biggest problem with it is that, in essence, the entire New Testament is Gnostic. The entire New Testament. And where modern Christians try to split those things is in the understanding of God. What type of God are they understanding? Now, modern scholars might claim that Gnostics believe in many gods. They believe in one all-powerful God, and then there are all these other gods underneath them, which is a little bit like, the other version where there's one God and all these angels underneath. It's a little bit like that, but a little bit not. And then there are multiple versions of Gnosticism. So Gnosticism can have an ultimate good God, one ultimate God. It can have an ultimate God that is Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament. It can have an ultimate God with deities underneath it that are kind of secondary deities, like that create the world and that sort of thing. It can have all kinds of different understandings, all kinds of it. And the primary question for Gnosticism is, what is the nature of God before the creation of the world? And when you go through the first and 2nd century scholars, when they're talking about creation, it's really kind of funny because they rail against Homer and Hesiod, of all things. Homer and Hesiod. What does Homer and Hesiod have to do with anything? Well, it has to do with how the world was created. And there were probably Gnostic religions based on Homer and Hesiod as well. But in general, the Gnostic Christian religions were based on Genesis creation, the Genesis creation account. And now there was many, many, many understandings of what this Genesis creation account meant, but they're all based on it. They're all based on it. All the Gnostic Christian theologies are, as far as I can tell. I have not seen a Gnostic Christian theology based in Homer or Hesiod. And when you get into the New Testament, every one of those texts is, in fact, Gnostic. Every one of them is, in fact, Gnostic. It's only with late 2nd century, about 185, that it really becomes in vogue to start really stomping on the Gnostics. And the reason is, in essence, that they want to answer the question. They want the question answered. Before this period, there were, so many versions of this religion that it's absolutely ridiculous. And Irenaeus comes along and says they're all wrong, and here's how it works. And that's why, Irenaeus is a Catholic father, considered a Catholic father. What he ends up doing is he ends up going in and redacting a lot of text, and he calls everybody else heretics, which is fine and good. He's probably not the only one that has done that in general, but he's the one that births Catholicism, in essence, by his actions. And, at this point, I've been talking Pauline letters, and I tried to put up a video on 2 Corinthians, and I had a pretty decent hold on 2 Corinthians, and then I found out, I was looking through this text, and I was like, whoa, I'm dealing with something wrong here. There's something very, very wrong in this text, and it has to do with the Marcionite understanding of the text versus the current understanding of the text. What you have to deal with all of the Pauline letters. All of the Pauline letters were redacted, or somewhere around 185. They were redacted primarily with Acts of the Apostles in mind. So, in other words, they were altered slightly to fit the Acts of the Apostles. And when you go back before this time, it doesn't exist. It does not exist. And so when you get into the question of what was the Marcionite original, that's very, very difficult to answer. And, you know, so on some texts, it's not quite as difficult. You know, Galatians, we have an okay version of that. But the Marcionites created the Pauline letters. They created the Pauline letters. And the Pauline letters originally did not say what they say now. Irenaeus very clearly states that. Very clearly states that. You know, he claims that Marcion redacted them, but that's just a flat-out lie. It's a flat-out lie. And I think it's, you know, even more obvious when you've realized that Irenaeus, virtually everything he says, he's saying in order to redact. You know, he talks about the Nicolaitans, and he's trying to get the Gospel of John into the canon as the quote unquote fourth gospel. And he talks about the Nicolaitans and how the Nicolaitans did not believe that Jesus was human flesh. And the Nicolaitans were a very, very old religion. That's true. And he compares it to a specific line in John. Well, if you go into Revelations, now all of a sudden this line appears that says that he hates the Nicolaitans, that God hates the Nicolaitans. Well, who the hell put that in there? Well, Irenaeus put it in there because when that text was written, if their traditions, you know, when they're talking about their tradition and what their traditional dates are on this stuff, the Nicolaitans didn't exist back then. So how the hell did that end up in there? Well, it ended up there through redaction. When we talk about the Gospel of John, whether or not it says the Word became flesh, well, the redaction is in Irenaeus. You know, there's many ways to mitigate that, but it's quite possible that Irenaeus added that just to blow up the Nicolaitans, which were in very old theology, but they weren't that old. They weren't Revelations old, not according to their tradition. So it's really complicated, but Irenaeus has just, he's all over these texts, and he does alter the Pauline letters with Acts of the Apostles in mind. And so that's where I got into problems there with 2 Corinthians. Once I saw that there was a problem with the text, my understanding was pretty good. I thought, although I needed to clear it up a little bit, but I found out that it was in the middle of a bunch of other stuff that didn't make any sense at all. And so I just pulled the video off, and I'm going to look at Corinthians again. I may try and reconstruct the Marcionite version on some of these, but we'll see. And Tertullian doesn't even know who this guy is. He doesn't have a clue who Paul is. No idea. And that's what he's claiming. Of course, Tertullian's got all kinds of issues that probably should address. Anyhow, it's another very, very long video of me rambling on, and I guess I better get off here. Go Oklahoma State. Hope you go to a championship. That's awesome. I'll talk at y'all later. Bye.